previously on Alaskan. The participants involved with the Gold Prospectors Association of America's Alaska Gold Expedition have begun their prospecting adventure at the Cripple River mining camp outside Nome, Alaska. For many, their first stop was the famous Golden Beach, where they learned that although the gold in the sands is abundant, it is extremely fine and very difficult to separate from the heavy iron sands. And some of the more adventurous immediately headed out to the outer camps on the 2,200-acre property to try their hand at finding some larger gold. As for the miners in the Klondike, they are actively working the richest creeks on Earth and have pulled out a tremendous amount of color, causing the price of goods and services in Dawson City to skyrocket. As winter approaches, the men and women in Dawson must figure out a way to survive the freezing temperatures. When mining anywhere near the Arctic Circle, one thing that has always been and will always be an issue is permafrost. Permafrost is permanently frozen subsoil, occurring throughout the polar regions and locally in perennially frigid areas. The miners working the creeks during the Klondike Gold Rush found this to be a big problem, as a large amount of the pale airs they were searching for were buried in the frozen ground. In the early days of the Klondike, a fire would be built and left overnight to thaw a portion of the ground at a rate of about 14 inches a night until they finally reached gold. As time moved on, a faster thawing method was developed. This involved pumping steam from a boiler through the frozen ground, making it much quicker to reach the pale air. By using steam, they were also able to create a drift, or horizontal passageway, to follow those pay streaks and extract all the gold buried under the permafrost. Most of the drift mining was done during the winter, as the cold temperatures meant the shafts were not at risk of being filled with water. The material would be removed from the mine and placed in a dump pile, which would then be sluiced in the summer.
Probably the last 8 or 10 years I've been department head in charge of camp operations. It's been a real short leash, you know. So now I'm the department head and the entire crew of the outer camp supply. So I get along real good with my boss.
A healthy amount of supply is crucial for the well-being of the participants and crew at the remote camps on the Cripple River.
The biggest problem we have is supply, just getting stuff in here.
It's just hard to get supplies up and down the trail. We have to have food and wood, so whatever we got to do to get it, we do.
Don Carr has taken on the responsibility of ensuring a successful operation at these camps by delivering any and all the necessary supplies.
This is the first year that we've had a delivery process in mind for the outer camps. Up until this year, the outer camps have been pretty much responsible for getting their own stuff. Decided that promoting the outer camps like we were and all the interest in it, that it would be feasible to have somebody deliver firewood and fuel and food and stuff like that to the outer camps and kind of relieve the pressure off of them so that they could do what they're here to do.
Don is a really good guy. He helps me out a lot. Anything I need, I call on the radio and, like propane. If I'm running short on propane, I call Don and he'll haul propane down the beach and out the road and all the way into dredge camp. That's a 30-mile ride and brings it to there so I can bring it the other 8 miles or 7.5 miles to get it into here.
There are a couple reasons Don takes the long way to deliver the majority of the supplies. All of the fuel for the outer camps is stored in the town of Nome. This eliminates unnecessary trips to the main camp. Also, at times the weather can make the direct route impassable. Whether it be high water or deep mud holes, more often than not, the long way is actually the faster way.
Basically, I've been bringing most of the stuff either to the trommel or to the dredge camp here and staging it here, and then Creosis and Catchmark will come in and get it.
It was required by the Northwest Mounted Police that every stampeder entering into Canada be equipped with 1 year's worth of provisions in an attempt that the town of Dawson would not run short on food. By the time winter was approaching, that year had passed and all of their food was long gone.
They were already starting to see signs of hunger and starvation. This is like the first year that the people had started to come. There were more people pouring in than food to feed them.
Of course, it was a male-dominated experience, but about 10% of the participants were women. There were families up there. Eventually, schools were established in Dawson City, and we have pictures of children helping out with the mining process.
At one point, Dawson actually blew up to 40,000, which caused a near famine because everything, all the livestock, everything was being eaten quite quickly.
A meal that would cost 50 cents in Seattle was well over $3 in the Klondike. Since the majority could not afford this, most people were surviving on beans for every meal.
Some of these folks were not eating as well as they could. You know, during the year, a lack of fresh fruits and vegetables.
During the winter of 1898, Dawson City was experiencing a huge outbreak of scurvy.
And that, gone untreated, can lead to death too. So scurvy was a big deal.
Scurvy is caused by a vitamin C deficiency and can be avoided by eating fresh fruits and vegetables. A luxury at this time in the Klondike.
Dawson was not a very nice place. There was a typhoid fever epidemic here. Scurvy was rampant.
Even writer Jack London was stricken with this disease, but was fortunate enough to not allow it to consume his life. Instead, he used that experience, along with many others from his adventures to the Klondike, to help immortalize the deprivation inflicted upon thousands of dreamers during that time.
He did no writing here while he was in this part of the country, but it was such an important time. The experiences that he had, the people that he met, the stories that he heard, all of that really became the catalyst to his writing career. And so when he got back home the following year and then started to write again, it was like the stories just came out of him like a fever almost.
His experiences up here was less than a year as well, just like Soapy. But unlike Soapy, Mr. London lived to tell the tale.
When it is 75 below zero, a man must not fail in his first attempt to build a fire. That is, if his feet are wet. If his feet are dry and he fails, he can run along the trail for a half mile and restore his circulation. But the circulation of wet and freezing feet cannot be restored by running when it is 75 below. No matter how fast he runs, the wet feet will freeze the harder.
Jack London, he got it right? He got it right. He knew how to describe the land.
Many years after he'd become a famous author, he said, "One gets their perspective in the north, I got mine."
So a lot of his novel, like To Build a Fire, White Fang, and other short stories of his very seem to epitomize the romance of the North, were conceived on his adventures here.
On his way up to Dawson City, Jack was known to have wintered in several cabins. But there is a certain cabin that is particularly special.
What makes this cabin so special is that Jack scribbled some graffiti on the back wall in pencil. he scribbled his name, Jack London, miner, author, January 27, 1898.
And down creek, about maybe a quarter of a mile, is the cabin that housed a family that actually saved his life, saved him and his partner from the scurvy.
Unfortunately, not everyone was so lucky. While many were living lavishly and flaunting their newly found fortunes, scurvy, along with other diseases, claimed the lives of over 2,000 that winter.
Did not get enough bug dope.
For over a century, large-scale mining operations have been commercially processing the dirt and gravels around Nome, Alaska.
I did a lot of prospecting last year before I left, and we've got some nice places to go to, lots of new areas that have just never been hit before.
After years of persuasion, metal detecting professional Kevin Hoagland was granted access to detect on the tailing piles of one of these operations.
It's been 3 years of just sitting down with the owners, talking with the owners, having conversations with them, and because it is an active mine site, it's just not open to show up.
A handful of lucky participants were given the opportunity to not only accompany Kevin on this hunt, but also get one-on-one time with him for some invaluable instruction.
What you want to hear is with this machine, you want to hear na, 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 like a mosquito buzzing by your ear.
I know.
And you're going to listen to that. Now, see if you can hear this target. That's it. That's a target. That's exactly what you're listening for. This is a smart thing for them to do, allowing us to go in there and hunt and work on these old piles that haven't been touched in 40 or 50 years. They're using us to do their prospecting. If we get into an area and they start finding a lot of gold, or we start finding a lot of gold, then that's an area that they know that they can go back and rework with more modern equipment. This stuff hasn't been touched in, I don't know, I've heard anywhere from 75 years to 40 years. So we really don't know how long it's been since anybody's really been in here and worked this material.
Kevin spends time calibrating every person's machine, ensuring they have every possibility of finding some treasure.
Right now it's going through 256 different channels. It's listening to all the outside interference. It's hearing everything out here.
Gold nuggets are like snowflakes in that no two are identical. That being the case, a nugget holds a larger value than its weight in gold. While finding nuggets is rewarding, larger operations cannot afford the time spent looking for them. So typically, any rock, including gold larger than a quarter inch, will fall off into the tailing piles so they can focus on recovering the larger quantity of small gold.
So everything was taken down to quarter inch. Again, anything above that is off in those piles. Hey, head off up in there. I didn't see anybody else head up in there.
On the other side of the bushes or on this side?
On the other side of the bushes. Yeah. Rattle the bushes when you go by.
Yeah.
Just talk to the bear a little bit.
Well,
If you're anywhere and you find these old tailings, especially this really old stuff, you know, it went through a bucket line dredge, or it was washed, or it was this, or it was that. It wasn't done really well. In most cases. You're not out here listening for these great big rippers. Right. You're listening for these subtle changes. There's a lot of gold out here. A lot of it is smaller, and you'll be able to find it, but just listen for those subtle changes. Just about everywhere I've looked here, almost everywhere that I've been where I've been on these old mining sites, I've been able to find good color packed up in clays that were just never washed off the rocks. It's still there.
Yeah, this is Don. I'm at the trommel camp, and I've got some propane for you, and I'm going to put some fuel into your drum and also have some firewood. So whenever Spike wants to, he can come get it.
Thanks, Don.
It's my new favorite toy, man. It runs on 2D batteries, pumps it over for you, and You don't have to worry about spilling it unless you really want to. One of the stoves, the wood-burning stoves in one of the cabins, kind of in need of repair. So I brought another stove from the main camp and a load of firewood out today. Yeah, right down here at the bottom. Got a split, but you can put you some aluminum foil in there from the inside.
Yeah, that'll work just fine.
Appreciate you bringing our supplies out.
Yeah, let's go and load this wood.
I bring people up on Sundays. Well, naturally, they all want to start mining as soon as they get here, so I get them all mining, get them working. After I get them all working, then I have to take off and go back to Arctic Creek to go get materials, food, gas, anything else I need. And I do 3 or 4 of those trips a week, over there. It's a 7.5 mile one way, all tundra.
Every mile that they don't have to travel to get the supplies to that camp is a benefit to them. So.
But that's what we're doing right now. We're trying to make runs from the main camp in a vehicle out here to supply us with the things that we need.
Excellent.
That helps a lot. In the past, we've always had to go all the way back to the main camp to get our supplies, and that's really tough from up here. When you have to do that 3 or 4 times a week, that's a really rough ride. So.
Now, thanks to his help, they only return once a week.
And it's working out pretty good. We've had some problems. Equipment, my truck's been breaking down. I've had a little trouble with the quad. I haven't come to the end of my leash yet, and I like that.
The fabulous Gold Rush guy.
For the few that could afford it, entertainment was running rampant in the Klondike.
Place like this, like the Palace Grand Theater, you might come and see a show, and the quality actually increased dramatically over the years as time went by, and they could bring more quality entertainment up here. I guess there was a lot of vaudeville acts going on, which basically just you could conceive as just any disparate elements of performance art you can think of and just mash it all together, throw it up on the stage.
Hey, I started writing a song. Oh, you started writing a song, did you? Yep. Well, what's it called? It's called Meet Me Behind the Rock Crusher, baby.
I mean, they had boxers fighting. They had a guy actually by the name of Long Neck Larry who put a noose around his neck and just kind of hang there, for the delight of the audience. Little children come and sing their songs of home in Ireland.
When the weather conditions wouldn't permit mining, the miners would look for any way to entertain themselves.
Just anything to relieve the loneliness and isolation of your life out of the creeks.
It wasn't a glamorous life. It was hard work. There were lots of miners that had gold, and the ones that were poor probably got paid in gold and chucked it up on the stage for the girls because they'd been out in the bush for so long.
There was an abundance of dance halls, saloons, and gambling halls.
Even though gambling is legal around these parts, or was then, the Northwest Mounted Police, today the RCMP, turned a blind eye to the thing, as with prostitution. They felt it was a necessary evil to distract the men. So the Mounties always post a guy in the saloons and bars to make sure the games were kept honest, and that was one of the ways you cut down on the fighting that way.
In fact, during the rush, more fortunes were won and lost in the gambling halls of Dawson City than in the gold fields themselves.
So of course, people that made fortunes didn't keep them very long often. It's kind of like people who win the lottery nowadays. They're not conditioned to handle this amount of money, and so they spend it in very frivolous matters, not having a strategic plan for it. And many miners fell prey to that, where they just assumed that there would be more and more gold, and one day they hit rock bottom, there was nothing there, and they came back pretty much in the same state in which they left.
This would explain why only a handful of people actually left the Klondike with their fortunes.
That's what the gold rush was. It was a world of extremes. People that made fortunes, people that lost fortunes. They had 3 great months, right? Amazing nights, but then afterwards, nothing to retire on.
Still to come on Alaskan. The winter in Dawson City is coming to an end, and the rush is on once again. The rumors of a new gold discovery will soon reignite the adventurous spirit that drove them to this region of the world months prior. That same spirit of adventure is alive and well in both the crew and participants of the Alaska Gold Expedition. While they made the trip for gold, they will leave with so much more. And it's only just beginning. For extended content, visit AlaskanTheSeries.com and join the Alaskan the Series fan community on Facebook for all the latest news and updates.